Welcome, guys. Well, I've been MIA for roughly the past 2 weeks. That was when one of my last streams was. I think everyone here on YouTube, it's been even longer. The most recent video I actually made before this was when Mo left, which was actually ages ago now. So let's do a big catch-up. I've got plenty of stuff to talk about. There was actually an enormous amount of things going on with Guild Wars over this month. More than normal, I'd say, and you may have missed a lot of it if you're not following the game too heavily, including, yes, of course, as you can see in the title, build templates, Halloween as well, some extra life stuff, and as of just a few hours ago, the announcement of the next episode, the proper beginning of Icebrood Saga, Episode 1, Whisper in the Dark, which came as a part of the extra life. So let's start off though, first of all, with build templates, which have been announced on a post, had a live stream dedicated to them, and released all in the time since you've last seen me do a video. So, well, what is there to talk about? First of all, I'll note, I haven't used them that much. Though I have been playing loads of Guild Wars 2 over this month, I'm mostly in PvP and engaging with the rapid-fire monthly automated tournaments. And one of the big things that the devs made clear very early on with build templates is they are not a PvP feature yet. Now, that's a real bummer to me. The reason for that is that the PvP item system functions very differently to items and gear elsewhere in the game. Basically, items and gear have no effect in PvP, and then there's just the PvP gear that kind of gets layered on top. PvP sigils are different, PvP runes are different, there's the amulet system and so on. The devs did make it clear they have ambition to do PvP build templates. It's just because it wasn't ready yet and everything else was, they figured, why wait? Especially when you think about it, proportionally, there's a lot less PvPers than there are everywhere else in the game. So build templates had a post talking about how they'd work, had a stream showing how they'd work and the development efforts behind it and some of the faces of the people who were actually creating them, and all got released since you've last seen me make a post. And, well, there's been a lot of controversy through a hell of a lot of it. Controversy I've already commented quite a lot about, and as many of you guys will suspect, I'm not totally on board with. It's mostly because of the gem store and because of Arc DPS. So let's be clear about the state of Guild Wars 2 before all of this happened. You could use build templates through a third-party, community-developed add-on that ArenaNet had sanctioned and said was okay to use, that had its own user interface, its own installation, its own maintenance, its own little issues, and had an infinite number of builds that you could go for. That tool was Arc DPS, and it was brilliant. I've made a video about it before, talked about how good the build template setup was on there, showed you guys how to run with it. I think it was a really powerful thing, especially for those of us more dedicated to the game. Particularly, I think among the raiding community, it was really easy to get into this feature. If you had lots of different characters and different variations of builds for different bosses as you wanted to make minor tweaks, then Arc DPS was great for that, because you could get all those presets rolled, just take a couple of clicks, move on, eliminate a ton of the busy work. So this was a pretty good situation for the game, I'd say. But having it as a third-party tool instead of native didn't quite sit right for a lot of us. And I think experiencing how wonderful it was to have in Arc made people's desire for native build templates all the greater. And in general, people were still looking for ArenaNet to do it, so they didn't have to mess around with this third-party thing. Something they eventually revealed was in fact in the works with the big Future of Guild Wars 2 post way back in April. One thing that a lot of people didn't realize, though, about Arc's build templates is that ArenaNet had been very clear to the developer, Delta, that he could only keep build templates as a part of Arc as long as they weren't native to Guild Wars 2. Once they became native, the build templates in Arc had to be removed. Now, you might wonder, why is that so? Well, the answer, I think, is RMT and the gem store. If ArenaNet were going to try and monetize their own native build templates, which many of us have always identified was a smart and reasonable thing to do, then having a third-party tool that backdoors an official revenue stream for the devs is going to be a no-no. So that was all groundwork that was in place for however long now, but when ArenaNet announced build templates earlier in the month, and when it turned out, oh, they are interacting with the gem store, and it turned out, oh, Arc DPS has to go away, everyone got hit with this information at once. Obviously, there was going to be a bit of a backlash. Further compounding the community's ire is the fact that ArenaNet's native templates are not infinite. In Ark, you could do as many as you liked. With ArenaNet's version, you had to pay for the templates and you could only go up to a much lower cap. So if you were a super dedicated player that had been using Ark for ages now, had a ton of templates, you now had like a triple whammy of bad news. And because the number of people who post on Reddit and the forums are proportionally a greater number of these super dedicated, I would say mostly raiders, there's not much reason for huge numbers of templates elsewhere in Guild Wars 2. Then you would really want to kick up a stink. And that's pretty much what happened in a nutshell. In fact, I would say it's still ongoing. When the templates came out, there's been a lot of server instability. The devs have been rapidly trying to get through. I think there was some item loss issues, maybe with infusions. There were maybe some item duplication issues as well, which on ArenaNet stream, they said they were trying really hard to not have happen. I think did end up happening a bit. And generally, a lot of reason to be kind of miserable. For this particular hate train, I don't feel completely aligned with the rest of the community. The fact is, for me, as great as Ark's templates were, I reinstall and swap and move my clients so often that I'd end up losing the build templates regularly, wasn't using the feature that much. I don't find it that hard to swap a couple of traits. I have a very clear and quick understanding of what each specialization does and where the Grandmasters are and whether I want to go up, up, down, or down, down, up. I don't really have too much a problem double-clicking a few bits of gear to swap in and out of my inventory, even though I know it's a bit tedious. I also am a player that gets a lot of character slots. You know, I've got over 40 characters now, and I really have no problem spending the gold iron in PvP to get gems to buy a character slot, and then that's my new build. I just treat new characters as builds. So my need for all of this stuff really hasn't been that great. I also have understood that if they're gonna develop a new feature, they need to find a way to justify paying developers to do that, and then therefore this stuff was probably gonna be monetized. You can find me on the record saying for years now that the devs should add build template and that they should monetize it in some way, add new slots on the gem store. And wow, what a surprise, they did it. They did the smart, obvious thing. I can't tell you how dim and hypocritical I'd feel if I ended up raging about that fact now. I am disappointed the limit is so low, and I am kind of disappointed that build templates in Guild Wars 2, as they really are, they're not really templates as much as they are loadouts, and when you make casual swaps as you play, you're actually changing your build on the fly too. That's a little bit annoying, but overall, I think the game's a lot better off for having these. Overall, I still believe that because gold to gems exist, that the microtransactions are something I'm actually a lot more lenient on. I'm pretty sure I'll get all my templates and my library and everything filled out without actually having to spend any real world money at all. I'll just play the game and spend the gold that I get while playing the game on gems and acquire the stuff like that. So I'm not particularly incensed, and I'm pretty happy to have missed out on all of the internet whining, frankly. One nice benefit of all this is, as I'm doing my open world build series, I can now actually provide you guys links that you can copy paste into your client and get the builds really quickly. So we'll see how that goes. And in fact, if you're watching this video right now, I've already produced a warrior one, which you might have missed. I'm doing a double upload today just because I felt I wanted to make up a bit for the break in the YouTube videos. You guys might be able to check out, and we'll see how that goes. I'll have more comments on the build template stuff, I'm sure, in future days and weeks as I actually engage with it more. Like I say, I've been PvPing a lot lately, and they're not even in PvP. That's the true outrage to me. But, well, there's so few people in that corner that what's the point in whining about it, I guess. Let's move on and talk a bit about Halloween, which indeed did come out. It's actually going to be leaving again in a few days. That means I've got a lot of work to do in terms of unlocks and stuff to get my master stuff rolling. It is a year where they've added a substantial amount of new things. I've already streamed and talked about a bunch of it, but let's roll through just so that you guys out of the loop do know. Halloween in real life has actually just passed, but in-game it will be lasting for a few more days, about a week, I think. The first interesting thing is the start of a new invitation system for all festivals, but it's beginning here with Halloween. Basically, when you log in, you will get a mail offering you an item, and you can double click this to instantly access the Halloween content, like the Mad Realm and whatnot. It's like a portal scroll, and there's a new collection to get all the portal scrolls for all of the festivals, and once you have them all, I think you'll be able to combine them into a book. Now, that's kind of some minor quality of life, some minor convenience. It's some incentive for players to log into all the upcoming festivals over the next year, right through into 2020, which I kind of like. But what I find interesting about this is it's kind of a subtle suggestion from ArenaNet. They might not do any new festivals, right? Maybe now that Dragon Bash has been implemented, I would totally call an absolutely new festival, because the implementation we have now in Holbrack, new to 2019, is nothing like what it was for the one-time event in Season 1, where it was in a different town and had different activities and so on. But with that new festival, Dragon Bash, with Super Adventure Books rolling in a few years ago, with everything done, the Labyrinthine Cliffs in 2018, maybe the devs are washing their hands with new festivals. That's it. Which is kind of disappointing to me. I do remember the devs were suggesting they might do another PvP one, or maybe a char-centric one, and they could be dead in the water. Now that this invitation thing's done, how are they going to expand that later? I don't know. There you go, you get a new invitation. There's some other new items. You've got 2 new foods that got added with the festival. I was really hoping to see them be Ascended foods. Ascended cooking got added, and one of the things I was excited about is as Icebrood Saga goes along, we should be seeing Ascended foods come in with all this stuff. So why not new Ascended Halloween foods? Well, no, they're just kind of regular foods. Bit of a shame, I think. There's a new weapon set that you can earn in-game called the Royal Flame weapon set. There's 2 new meta achievements for some other additional, like, special weapons. One of them's like a mummy sarcophagus. Is very, very, very cool as a massive shield. There's another one. They involve you actually doing quest-like stuff. And, you know, going back to earlier content, but Halloween themed. So, over Halloween, one of the dungeons has resurged with life. There's been loads of people in dungeons at Halloween. Why? Well, because for one of these new special weapons and all these tasks you have to do, they're asking you to go back and run a Ra. So, loads of people have been at a Ra. You know, it's spooky, Halloween-y, the Undead City. I really liked seeing that there. They've also added just straight up new content there instead of just new rewards and whatnot. There are 2 new races. You'll remember that they added that very technical roller beetle race by reusing the Reaper's Rumble arena last year. Well, that returns now with another 2 on top. There's now a Springer race and a Skimmer one. I'm amazed at how much use they got out of that little room, that one place, the Reaper's Rumble. And you can really feel, actually, it's like, wow, I actually can't beat this without using the Springer. Sorry, it's not Skimmer. I think it's Jackal. There's a race where you have to use the Jackal teleport to avoid obstacles that will otherwise blow up and demount you. It's a great concept. I wonder why we haven't seen, you know, even from the start of Path of Fire. There's a new decoration set, as always. There's new minis as well. You know, all the back pieces that we've been getting over the years. There's now like mini versions of those, which are sentient, floating, moving ones. Like you can imagine like a haunted library. Pretty cool. And there's another new mini Raven as well. That super prestige mini Raven, Oxydecimus, I think, blah, blah, blah. The Shadow Raven. There's now another one, which is like a fiery Raven. I don't think it's quite as expensive as Oxydecimus. He hasn't been dethroned. But there is another new prestige mini to get. And then, of course, when Halloween came out, they did a bunch of Black Lion stuff as well. There's a new weapon set called the 7 Reapers stuff. That's not the same as the Royal ones, which are in-game earnable. Both came together. There was new backpacks and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, Halloween was actually pretty good. Still ongoing. I've got so many unlocks to get from Halloween. It's ridiculous. And this year is just added to the list. So I've really got to get going with that before it leaves. Then also the other big thing that's been going on this month is Extra Life, which is really just closing down now and gave us some of that big information you can see in the video title. So basically it was this big donation campaign. The devs were trying to drum up money. They ran this thing to actually integrate with Guild Wars 2 as well. So as the community donated more to Extra Life, we actually started getting rewards in game, like lots of karma. If you guys just log in, like literally just turn on Guild Wars 2 and log in at the moment, I'm pretty sure you end up just getting kegs and kegs and kegs of karma just because of how much money was raised. I think over $75,000 in the end. There's also, if you buy a certain thing from the gem store at the moment, a special new title you can get. Now, I find this quite interesting. First of all, you don't even have to spend real-world money to get these Extra Life rewards. You don't actually have to support the game or the Extra Life initiative. You can just use your in-game gold, get a couple of gems, and then buy the thing, which is what I did. Quite shamelessly, this is what I did. But there's a new title, and it's a blue title. It's called The Extra Life. But the idea of a colored title is very, very interesting to me. Right now, it feels really weird and arbitrary and strange to me that we have this odd title that sits outside of the system, but the idea of the devs going through and coloring titles different ways based on how rare or interesting they are, I think could be a good way of differentiating such a massive title pool that we currently have in the game, and is literally only there for like Barbie, cosmetic, fashion wars level stuff at the moment, which I think is a bit of a shame. I've actually talked about this many years ago, and I did get a bit of kickback from you guys in the community saying, oh, you don't want titles to be colored and have rarities because then that kind of eliminates low rarity ones from feeling like valid options, because everyone's only ever going to want the high rarity colors. Maybe that's a valid point, but now we have this random blue one, so when you're walking around in game you will see people with the blue extra life written there. It was all a part of this event. When the final community goal was hit, there was another reward they gave as well, a new novelty, a cat tonic. What a surprise! Another cat-oriented reward, guys, in the game. This is quite interesting, though, in that when you go into the tonic, you will get cat skills. And that's fairly normal. That's costume brawl stuff, right? We always get costume brawl skills when we use tonics. Well, this one is giving you regular combat skills as a cat. So what does that mean? Well, that means you can go to like the Rumble Pit in PvP and fight people as a cat now, right? And it means that you get access to some tools on your class you otherwise wouldn't. It's a little bit like when the Dragon Mount came in, the Sky Scale, and now everyone has a fire field if they're in PvE because the Sky Scale has it. Well, there is a stealth ability here. So anyone, warrior, whatever, can quickly drink this tonic, can stealth themselves, leave the tonic, and there you go. It's just regular stuff. Or you can use the cat-specific abilities. There's like pulsing days on there. The auto attack and the skill 2 is like a leap. They actually do considerable damage. It's very strange. It's also a tonic that locks your camera in really close, which I also find kind of weird. The idea that a tonic can affect your camera in this very specific way. And, you know, I had some fun running around on it. Finally, with the last goal, they did announce that episode 1 of the Icebreed Saga is going to be called Whisper in the Dark. They released this concept art you can see in the background here of Bram, and the release date is November 19th. So, November 19th is not very far away. This is kind of weird that they gave this as a goal. I usually get the sense that the devs are so scared they're not going to hit their release date. They want to leave it as late as possible before finally saying when it's coming. But they're now locked in on that. So that's going to be not the next Tuesday or the one after, but the one after that. And then we're on episode 1. I'm actually really happy to hear about the November release date, because if you recall, when they started talking about Icebreed Saga, they were suggesting that maybe smaller patches, but more regular. They were suggesting that 1 to 2 month slot. It would have felt really bad if the prologue was in this summer, and then it was Halloween, nothing November, Winter's Day, December, and then finally January, episode 1. To have had that half-year gap would have felt awful. So I think it was really important to get a November date, and that's what they've done, as far as we can see so far, mid-November. That's November 19th, Whisper in the Dark. And of course, the title just makes me think of that beautiful trailer from the beginning. So pretty exciting. And there you have it. I will note one final extra thing that's been of particular interest to me is over on the balance team. We've had some balance hotfixes affecting stuff like Condi Thief and whatnot. I know a lot of you guys watching this video won't be so interested in PvP, but you should know that an old PvP player who got hired on, I think was working QA or something at the studio for a long time, has just been promoted and is a full-on balance dev. That they are splitting, they're doing big things with the balance teams at the moment, where they're giving really dedicated, balanced, competitive team their own stuff, and they are operating kind of separate to a lot of the PvE balance. And there's going to be a lot more splits coming up in the future and a lot more competitively minded balance. They've given some really juicy looking previews that are very substantive at reining in a ton of the power creep and a lot of the pressure and a lot of the wild stuff that's come into Guild Wars 2 over the past 2-3 years, maybe even 4 years, you might say. And it's really exciting. I'm going to do a particular video on that balance preview for you guys, as I always do. But they've got a World versus World specific post and a PvP specific post, and it's all extremely cool looking. So you can keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for the warrior build video that I've already done. There'll just be 2 more after that. We can actually share the templates. Overall, I'm feeling very good about things. I think Halloween was great. Looking forward to the next patch on the 19th. So good to be back, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'd love to see you down in the comments. And be sure to check out my streams as well, which we'll be returning to. And we've got, like I say, a ton to get in Halloween before it leaves. So there'll probably be a very long stream coming up soon. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.